Does Askeladd finally meet his demise in this episode of Vinland Saga? You're just gonna have to watch to find out. But before we start, I just want to thank everyone for your support. I asked you last week if you could help me get over the 300 subscriber mark, and we did it! Woo! Hey, if we can get the 310 by next week Sunday, that would be amazing. But let's start episode 16 of Vinland Saga, History of Beasts. Let's do it!
I believe the choice of voice to judge me, the one and only way I can always see.
So Prince Canute is lost for words. He's lost Ragnar, his handler, and he doesn't really know what to do with himself. He's feeling very emotional, he's feeling depressed, and he feels like he doesn't have any sort of direction in his life anymore. But Askeladd thinks that this is a necessary precursor for his eventual growth into a strong, confident king. And he tells us to Bjorn when they're having a conversation with one another. And he even makes reference to the fact that, hey, Bjorn, why do you follow me in the first place? You do it because you trust me, because I'm a strong warrior, because I'm someone that you can look up to. It's the same for me as well, Bjorn. I want my ruler to have a strong personality and a strong will for leadership, and someone that we can all sort of look up to, and someone that we can respect, and we can be proud of. So that's an interesting little conversation. And then we move on to an English soldier. He's being tortured by the Danes, and they're trying to figure out if there's an army that's following them, when they're going to be there, if it's Thorkell. And Askeladd's like, let me take over for a little bit. He's like, I noticed your fingernails look a little bit long. Let me just help you out there. Let me give you some grooming tips. And he cuts a little too deep. So deep that his entire fingertip is cut off by the process. So Askeladd proving once again that, he's a very calculated, no-nonsense sort of guy. If he needs information, if he needs to get something done, he's not going to quibble about it. He's not going to say, well, should I do this? It kind of seems a little sadistic. No, he's going to do what's necessary to get the job done. But the really important part of this scene is the conversation that Askeladd has with the English soldier. Now, once again, we figure out that Askeladd is a historian of sorts. He's got a lot of information about England and Denmark. He's like, well, because the English soldier calls Askeladd and the Danes beast, but he's like, well, are we really beast? Because the fact of the matter is that you guys didn't just start off living in England. He's referring to the Anglo-Saxons. That would be the Celtic people, not to be confused with the Boston Celtics, but he's like, and they lived here for quite some time, and then the Romans came in. Now, the Romans were very benevolent in a way. They brought over knowledge and resources, and they taught the Celtics certain things, and then they would eventually leave the land and allow the Celtics to basically prosper as they see fit. When the Anglo-Saxons came over, they destroyed everything. They ran the Celtics out to the wastelands, to the infertile lands that had no resources, and basically left them for dead. So he's like, you guys started this. You guys were the savage beast. The Danes just have to be more savage than you to run you out. So that's a nice little history lesson from Askeladd, and it's a good reminder that, there's a lot of brutality in the world, especially from the past, and that everyone sort of has this mindset, especially like people who are in power, that what they're doing is right. But usually to get to that position of power, it took a lot of wrongdoing to get there. It took a lot of egregious actions and usually a lot of bloody wars to attain that position of power. So, it's a nice little bit of perspective there. And then we move on and we find out that Thorkell is in fact coming. We already knew this, but it becomes aware to Askeladd and his troops. So they got to get on the move. And again, they're low on sleep. They don't have a lot of food or resources, but they just got to keep moving because they cannot win a battle with Thorkell. If I remember correctly from a previous episode, Askeladd's men total about 100, whereas Thorkell, I think, had 500. And you also have to take into consideration that Thorkell himself is probably equivalent to like 100 people. So yeah, it's just not a battle that Askeladd wants to get into. He realizes that it would be pretty much futile. It would be a lost battle, so he's got to keep moving. Now, they get to a bridge, and Askeladd's like, okay, we need to buy ourselves some time. Let's cut down the bridge. Now, it's not that the water in the river is high enough where Thorkell and his men couldn't cross it. They could easily cross it, even in the wintertime when it's freezing cold. It's the fact that they won't be able to bring over their wagons and their resources, which means that they're going to run out of food and water. So that's going to slow them down, which will allow Askeladd and his men to put some distance between Thorkell. Now, when this is happening, Thorkell's men start to have conversations with each other, and they're having the type of conversations like, Askeladd has lost his luck, he's no longer the leader that we thought he was, we got to do something about this. And basically, there's a lot of deceit and dissension within Askeladd's troops, and they're like, look, he's done a lot for us, but we got to cut bait with him, we got to get rid of him at this point. Maybe we can use Prince Canute as a present to Thorkell, and he will be benevolent to us, and he will show mercy, and he won't kill us. However, if you saw the people who betrayed Askeladd earlier on in the episode, Thorkell didn't give a shit. He just murdered those guys. So I don't know if that would go too well for Askeladd's troops if they in fact did that, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, the episode ends, and Askeladd is very perceptive. He sees it coming, and he basically tells his men, look, if that's your choice, if you don't want to stick with me, if you don't see me as a leader that is worthy of making the decisions for you guys, then I'll just leave. There's no more reason for me to be here. But right before he leaves, they encircle him, and it looks like they got evil intentions. It looks like murderous intentions, like they want to kill him. So I predicted this about a couple episodes ago. I thought it would happen sooner, but it looks like maybe we're finally at that breaking point where Askeladd is finally going to meet his demise. I didn't see this coming, though. This is a bit shocking that Askeladd's troops turned on him so quickly, but it makes sense. I mean, the way he's pushing them, the lack of sleep, the resources, the fact that they're moving in the wintertime, so it's absolutely freezing cold. It totally makes sense, and you're in the heat of war as well, so there's just a lot of different emotions going on. So what are the implications that are going to happen if, for example, hypothetically speaking, Askeladd does die? Like I said in a previous episode review, Thorfinn's going to have to reconcile his life without the goal of avenging his father, because he sees the only way to avenge his father as by killing Askeladd. So if he can't kill Askeladd, what does he do with his life? We have to figure out what Prince Canute's gonna do. Like, is he gonna be captured? Is he going to finally go back to Denmark at some point? Is he gonna start fighting and becoming a man like Askeladd hoped for? We just don't know at this point. What's gonna happen with Bjorn, Askeladd's right-hand man? Is he going to stick with the Danes? Is he going to join the Jan Vikings? Is he going to go with Thorkell? I don't see him going with Thorkell. I feel like he's too loyal to Askeladd. He just wouldn't go to Thorkell. I think that would be the antithesis of who he is as a person. I could see him being some sort of like a vagabond almost, like a wandering warrior where he just kind of lives his own life, and maybe he'll still fight for the Danes, but he won't be as loyal to like anyone in particular. He'll just do it to survive, so to speak, to make money so that he can drink booze and eat food and live a comfortable life. So that'll be interesting as well. And I do have to mention one thing I did not like about this episode. I thought this episode was absolutely fantastic. Once again, a nice methodical slow burner. They really ramped up the tension, but in a way that wasn't too quick or expedient. It was just a very nice gradual ramping up. I mean, it was just so beautifully done. The fact that when Thorkell entered the scene, and he threw his spear from what looked like maybe a football field, maybe even a couple football fields, away from Askeladd's troops, and was able to kill 4 people. The spear went through 4 people's bodies and just killed them all in one freaking throw. I mean, come on. The rocks throwing was one thing, but this is just getting absurd at this point. I could understand if he killed 1 person. It's still unrealistic, but I would have been like, okay, that's okay. But 4 people, they really exaggerate his power to the point where it's like, is it even necessary? They can do realistic things like Askeladd cutting off the tips of the English soldier, and I feel like that resonates with the viewer in a much more real way. I just don't feel like these absurd, unrealistic feats of strength or any sort of impact besides the fact that it kind of looks cool. Sure, it looks great, but it's like, I much prefer the realistic type of actions, especially when you're lumping in the history that Askeladd is speaking of and the great character developments. You don't need to exaggerate these feats of strength any more than you have to. It is what it is. They've done it before, and I suspect that they'll keep doing it again as long as Thorkell's around. But I think that's all I really gotta say. We'll have to find out if Askeladd finally meets his demise in the next episode, and where that leaves everyone else, where Thorfinn goes from there, where Canute goes from there, Bjorn, Thorkell. So big things happening in Vinland Saga, and we'll have to see what happens. I'll catch you on the flip side.